Hi, this is Dana Gorman here with ThriveWith3eyes.com, and today we have the pleasure of being with Sergeant Goodchild, who at this point is one of my very good friends. He has been to very many of my summits at Thrive Summit number 11. We worked very hard to come up with this list, or rather, I worked very hard to make Sergeant work very hard coming up with this list, and then I determined that masking had to be number one, which then he acquiesced to. So welcome, Sergeant. I'm thrilled that we're able to finally do the backup. If people want the history of everything that this video is about, there's a previous video that explains why you're going to need what Sergeant's going to show us on this list today. But today, we're just going to take, this is going to be your reference video for the activehealing.org Thrive Top 10 for neuroregeneration. And we're going to start with masking. You see on the list right here, this is his phone number if you want to contact him. Masking came from the Institute in Philadelphia. They see more brain injured children than anyone else, and everybody does the rebreathing or masking technique. So Sergeant is going to start by showing us that with your son.
Okay. Well, Dana, before I even start, let me just say thank you, and it's a pleasure to be associated with Thrive, and I think that the work that you've done and what you've created is amazing.
Well, thank you. Now
jumping right into it, typically what I do is, depending on the age of the child, I most frequently, if I'm working with like an 8 to older child, I use a Ziploc bag. A gallon-size Ziploc bag, excuse me. So what we have here is a full-size gallon Ziploc bag.
Okay.
But if I'm working with like a 10 to 13-year-old, I will usually cut off about this much of the Ziploc bag. So just about 2 inches off the bottom. So okay. I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna show you how to make your own mask.
Okay.
So it starts with an anesthesia mask,
which you can get anywhere.
It's got a nice.
You can pick that up anywhere at any medical supply house.
Yeah, they cost you about $10 if you're buying one at a time.
Okay.
And they've got they create a nice good seal right here with a soft cushion.
Okay.
And actually that soft cushion is able to be blown back up again, if you can see that stem right there.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So I'm going to cut off the bottom 2 inches of this bag. We got rid of that. And then I'm going to use some packaging tape to reseal that part of the bag.
And again, just so people understand, this is a rebreathing of your own air technique. So when kids are smaller, they have less volume that they're breathing in and out. When kids and adults are larger, they're breathing more volume. So past the age of like 10 to 13, the gallon-sized bag matches the volume that we're targeting. But when they're smaller, this is him making a smaller bag, so there's less volume exchange, correct?
That's exactly correct, Dana. And, you know, for younger kids, you can even use a full-size quart bag quite effectively often.
Okay.
So what I've done is I've cut the bag shorter. I've resealed the bottom edge with packing tape. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the corner off the bag.
Okay.
So
show us how big you cut off. Okay,
you should
perfect.
be able to see that, I hope.
Yeah, it's right where his shoulder is.
Yeah, so I'll show it again.
Go down, there you go.
Okay.
Perfect.
So it's big enough so that you can take that corner and you can stick it through the little O-ring here.
Okay, I get it.
And then you open that up. I usually will just stick my finger in here like so.
Okay.
And then this slides right over.
So the bag becomes the female and the mask becomes the male. And
Exactly.
then the yellow is what's holding
Yellow
the
is what holds it all into place.
Okay.
And now we have this. Now, I always like to rough up my bags.
Okay.
This started off as a brand new Ziploc bag, of course, but you want to make sure that the bag's not
Stuck.
collapsed
Okay.
when you go to put it on your child. You want to make sure that there's a pocket of air in there so that their first breath in, they have something to take in.
And just really quickly for the moms and dads and people who've been following the Thrive work for a long time, they know that they're looking at this going, that's so toxic. Oh my gosh. It's a cost of benefit thing. There's no question that these are toxic. There's no question they smell in the beginning. There's no question that the longer you can air them out or whatever you can to make them smell less before you do it, the better. But in a cost of benefit ratio, masking still plays out. Go ahead.
And if the smell is bothersome, one of the ways that you do want to air it out, I haven't with this mask, but another thing that you can do is you can take an essential oil or you can take a little organic vanilla extract and just place a little dollop of it either on the inside of the bag or on the inside of the mask, and suddenly your mask will smell like vanilla ice cream.
And not only that, but it introduced some of the mendability concepts where you're healing the brain by using the sense of smell, as long as the smell that you choose is one that they like.
It should be one that they like, and it should obviously be non-toxic.
Right. Okay, keep going.
So one of the things that I have to remind parents all the time is we don't like Glade plugins or any of that type of material in the house at all.
Nothing that smells as much as human possible.
So my son is willing to come over here. Now you're going to want a stopwatch. I have a timer on my phone that I'm going to be using today. So we're going to do a 50-second mask with my son, who's 12 years old and about 70 pounds. And we'll talk about the reaction after I take the mask off him that we're looking for, but you never want your mask to exceed 1 minute long.
Okay.
No mask should ever last more than a minute. And depending on the age of your child and their lung capacity, I'm often doing masks in the neighborhood of 30 to 35 seconds.
Okay.
To get the reaction I'm looking for. So, will you please join us over here?
Thank you, Sergeant Junior.
All right. So,
sit up straight.
I'm going to put this on, okay? And then I'm going to try to turn this on with my other hand. All right. Are you ready? And go.
So your goal is for them to just basically breathe normally, especially these kids that can't really understand what's going on. You want it to be non-stressful as much as humanly possible. You probably work your way up slowly to the point where you're getting the reaction that Sergeant's looking for, but their goal is to just breathe normally. We're at 21. And you can see that the bag is going in and out with his in and exhalation.
And one of the things that works really well for the boys is to ask them if they know who Darth Vader is. And tell them you're going to make their breathing sound like they're Darth Vader. A lot of boys get a huge kick out of that, and it puts them at ease. I also play with the mask quite a bit.
We're at 50 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to take it off right now. Okay, now I don't know if you could hear that, but there's a, you did an awesome job. Thank you very much.
Wait, can I ask him something real quick, Sergeant?
Can Dana ask you something? Come here. Go ahead, ask him, Dana.
There's not many kids that are second-generation maskers. So I want to ask you, what do you feel when you mask?
What she said. He's not wearing his hearing aids, Dana.
Oh.
What she said is, how do you feel when you mask?
Okay.
Does it make you feel? Does it make you feel anxious or nervous when I mask you?
Not really.
No. Does it make you feel like you could go run for a while when I mask you?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Okay. But
Okay,
it
that's good.
doesn't bother.
Thank
But it
you.
doesn't bother you, right? It makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Doesn't scare you. It doesn't make you feel short of breath.
Mm-hmm.
No. It's all okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, so I think that was a great demonstration of masking. The only piece of that I think we're missing right here is the data point, Sergeant, of that transition in breathing that you're looking for from the shallow breather to the.
So there's a couple of things that I feel are very important to discuss before we move on.
Okay.
So one is you're only keeping the mask on long enough to trigger the reaction. And the reaction that we're looking for is a brief hesitation after the mask comes off, followed by a deep inhalation. So it'll look like something like that. I just exaggerated it.
Okay.
But that's essentially what you're looking for. Now, once you trigger that reaction, your child is guaranteed to be stuck in a deep breathing response, in my experience, for the next 3 minutes.
Okay.
So you do not want to re-trigger the deep breathing inside that time period because there's no advantage. What's happening is the child's rebreathing their own exhaled carbon dioxide.
While
The carbon dioxide is building up and it's being monitored by the chemical receptors that are responsible for, among other things, monitoring the oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio in the blood at all times. And when you tip that in the favor of carbon dioxide, it triggers two reactions. One is it dilates all the blood vessels going to the brain, and it triggers deep breathing from the lower lobes of the lungs. So once you've triggered that, you've now got the child deep breathing, and they're taking in larger volumes of oxygen, and that oxygen's being put into the bloodstream, which has got a dilated pathway taking it directly to the brain. The net result being as much as 60% more oxygen in the child's brain.
Perfect. So I think we should go. Go ahead.
Hold on one sec. If you were to take that child who's stuck still in the deep breathing response and do another mask, now what you have them deep breathing is carbon dioxide. Okay. So I ask all of my parents to put 5-minute intervals between their masking sessions.
So at least 5 minutes, but if they could do it every 5 minutes, they would start to see huge improvement probably.
It's a tremendous advantage because, we can talk about all of the nutrients that are essential for good health, but nothing trumps oxygen. Oxygen is the most vital nutrient that we need for survival. We can only live for about 3 minutes without it.
Right. And I think you were at summit number 10 where the entire thing was on neurovascularity. Were you at that one?
Exactly, yep.
Well, and this is doing that in the brain in real time.
Yeah.
So the big takeaways are you need a surgical mask from any old medical store, you need a pair of scissors, some tape, a Ziploc bag, and then you need the first 10 minutes of this video with a timer. The big takeaways are you don't do it more than every 5 minutes, but up to every 5 minutes. More is better. Don't ever exceed a minute. And for these smaller kids, you want to not go past where they start to breathe quickly. You want to stop once you get to that point.
Right.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on. Now you're going to move that table out of the way as you stand up. We are going to go to when I was working with Sergeant, I really wanted a way to separate these out so they made more sense. So I forced him into thinking in the horizontal plane and the vertical plane. So we're going to do the things that are laying down first, and he's starting with the English 5.
So there are 5 English 5 before I get started.
Okay.
Each one's a separate movement. Each one is done one time only.
Okay.
And if there's some of them have a left and right component, so you would do the left side once and the right side once. But they're all done one time, and they're only done once daily.
Oh, we love this.
So they're very simple. They look a lot like something that you might see in a children's yoga class.
Okay.
And they are very preparatory. I like to do at least 2 months of the English 5 before moving on to the fetal crossing and the fetal measuring, which will be the next 2 elements that we go through once the English 5 are completed.
Okay.
All right, so with that, I will move on and we'll do the English 5. So,
I think you should move, yeah, that way. Perfect.
okay, so the first one is called the hip lift. The child's going to come down here.
You know,
They're going
actually
to
move a
take
little bit closer to the crack between the mats. Perfect. Thank you.
So the child's going to take a deep breath in, and while they do that, they're going to lift their hips up off the floor.
Okay.
Once their hips are elevated, they're going to blow that breath out, and they're slowly going to let their hips come down to the floor. So it will look like this.
So basically our kids are going to do Lamaze.
So the next one is a simple little turn to the right. They're keeping their shoulders on the floor. They don't have to go very far, and they're coming back here.
And for all of these, for the kids that are not able to do it independently, we can motor them through all of these.
So that one was called the hip roll. The third is called the bicycle. And the bicycle is the most complicated of them all. So can you see my feet if they're extended out here, Dana?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so we start here. We're going to keep the toes pulled back towards your nose. So we've got the ankle flexed. So we're coming out here with the ankle flexed, toes back to the nose, and then the toes are going to point. At which point, we're going to pull this leg back, but the leg on the left, we've got the ankles flexed, and then they come back. Okay, so that's called the bicycle, and that's all there is to it.
Okay.
Number 4 is called the hip. I'm going to do this one this way. So number 4.
Actually, do it at an angle, like halfway between those two positions. There you go.
Okay. So this one is called the arch. The head goes down on the floor. I'm going to look at the camera so that you folks can hear me.
Okay.
The forehead is on the floor, and what we're going to do is the eyes are going to look up towards the ceiling, and they are going to pull the head up. So the child's going to end up here. The eyes look up towards the ceiling, and we end up here.
Okay.
And then the eyes come back down, and we're there.
Okay.
Okay? And the last one is, would my assistant get me the green pillow, please? Thank you.
We actually spent almost an hour setting this up, and it's paying off quite well. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're going to have, this one is called the push and the pull.
Okay.
So with the push and the pull, if you were a parent doing this, you would be behind your child, and you would simply have your hand on the pillow. So their head's going to be back like this. You're imagining that there's a string between their chin and their knee. So when their knees straighten out, it pulls their chin down.
Okay.
And then their chin pulls the knees back up.
Okay.
And
do
then
that again. Do that one more time just as a demo. We get that we only do each of these one time, but do one more slow demo.
This one has a left and a right component, Dana. So let me do it on my other side now.
Okay, put your head closer to the crack.
My head is cocked back. Can you see that on the video?
Go back towards the crack more.
Yep. And now, and my knees are up towards my chest.
Okay.
My knees are going to go straight, and that's going to pull my chest, my chin to my chest.
Okay.
And then I'm going to go back up like this.
Okay, and your arms are not really a piece of this. They're just there.
No, my arms are not moving. And so that is the English 5 in their entirety.
So the goal with the English 5 is that they do those things one time per day, period.
Yeah, each one gets done once and only one set per day.
Okay, moving on. So now we've done the English 5 for about a month, and we're going to
No,
start
two
fetal
months.
crossing
2 months.
for 2 months, and then we're going to advance to fetal crossing.
Fetal crossing. Now, fetal crossing and fetal measuring. Fetal crossing, you'll see in a moment, has the child go from a very safe and secure position to a slightly open and fragile position, and then back again.
Okay.
It's a great exercise for giving a child a feeling of safety and security.
Okay.
But it's a fetal pattern. And it reaches down into the what we call the black bag of ickiness, and it can raise to the surface a lot of emotional stuff for a child.
Okay.
The fetal crossing and fetal meshing are not something to jump into quickly, and they are not something to jump into with a lot of repetitions initially until you know how your child's going to react. So the English 5 serves as a almost an
Foundation.
inoculation against the negative stuff that can develop as a result of doing fetal crossing and fetal measuring. Fetal crossing, fetal measuring.
And Sergeant, quickly, just because something makes these kids emotional doesn't make it a bad thing. Often,
no, it's a really good thing because it's bringing stuff up to the surface where you can deal with it.
Yes, but the key would be, number one, that you try to encourage dealing with it as much as possible. And number two, when these kids have emotional moments, they send toxins through their system, so add in some binders. Keep going.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to start with fetal crossing. Now, my general way that I start with fetal crossing, it's going to seem ridiculous, but I will only do 2 repetitions of this. And fetal crossing and fetal measuring never get done more than once a day under any circumstance.
Okay.
Now, a lot of my kids move up to 20 or 30 repetitions of these things.
Okay.
Some go even above that. But they replicate a lot of developmental stages and a lot of reflexes that can trigger anxiety and poor sleep.
Okay.
So we start with very low repetitions. We gauge how much the child is capable of doing, and I'm very slow in building their number of repetitions up.
Okay.
Okay? So when I do it today, I'll probably do like 8 or 10 repetitions of each of these. But my recommendation to the parents out watching this video is they start with fetal crossing. They do maybe 2 repetitions per day total.
Okay.
And they very slowly increase the repetitions, maybe up to 8. So maybe if the child's doing well and you're not seeing any negative repercussions, you move every 4th or 5th day, you add a single repetition to the set that you're doing.
Okay.
Until you reach 8, and then you stay there. And I wouldn't recommend anyone really goes above 8.
Okay, show us.
So, and the same thing would go for fetal measuring, but I would only start one at a time. So, you want to put your child on a comfortable surface, and it's not meant to be. Dana, can you see my whole body right now?
Yep, it works.
Okay.
It's good.
You can see my ankles?
Yep, I can.
Okay, great. So we don't want it to be a core strength exercise. So I put some pillows underneath my legs to keep my legs up.
Okay.
And I've got support behind my shoulders, but it's really important that that support is below my shoulder height, because ultimately I want to be able to tilt my head pretty far back. And if this is above my shoulder height, my head will hit into it before it gets as far back as it should.
Okay.
So we're going to maintain skin-to-skin contact with both my wrists and with my ankle.
Okay.
And it's going to be done relatively slowly. So for fetal crossing, I start here, and as I look back, my wrists and my ankles uncross, but again, they maintain skin-to-skin contact. And then when I come back, now my lefts are on top of my right. So I've got my left arm and my left hand, leg above my right.
Okay,
And
so
I
it's very,
and I come forward.
these
And I
ankles.
look back and
These,
I come forward. And I look back and I come forward. Look back and come forward. So, do you believe that's clear for your audience?
I do. We barely got your ankles, but I think it's very clear. We may, if we have time at the end, want you to just focus on the couch alone and do it closer, but we're good for now. So go on to the.
So that would be fetal crossing. Each time the head goes back counts as one. So with fetal measuring, what we're going to do is we're going to elaborate on fetal crossing. So with fetal crossing, here the child's safe and secure. We're a little bit exposed, and then we're coming back and we're safe again. So the child gets used to this transition between being a little bit exposed but being able to return to a safe place.
Is that still fetal crossing?
What's that?
Is that still fetal crossing?
That was still fetal crossing.
Okay.
So with fetal measuring, what's going to happen is we're going to exaggerate that a little bit. And we're no longer going to maintain that skin-to-skin contact. Instead, we're going to measure the width of the body. So we're measuring the width of the hip and the width of the shoulders relatively with the arms and the legs. So we're coming out here. Now, if I were doing 8 of these, the first 4 would be done with rights on top, and the second 4 would be done with lefts on top. So what you just saw me do was transition between the rights being on top and the lefts being on top.
Okay.
So
just to clarify, Sergeant, when you're doing fetal, when you're doing fetal crossing, it's a lesser version of this thing where you're keeping contact and you're just going every other one. Right, left, right, left. When you advance to fetal measuring, you're separating the arms and the legs, the width of the body, and then you're doing 4 with right on top, and then 4 with left on top.
That's right. So we go 1, so that was 2, this would be 3, and obviously my legs would be doing this too, but this is 4. And then for 5, we're coming back here, and now we're on lefts on top.
And just again, because this is the child that I have, this is just as beneficial to a child that you have to motor through this as it is a child who can process and motor through this themselves.
Yes. A lot of parents will figure out a way to support the child in their lap and do this. And one of the great benefits of doing that, this is a really important one for kids. Excuse me for one second. I got to get that out of our camera shot.
Yes, look at you, Mr. On it.
I know that's bothering you.
All those paintings in the background.
With the fetal crossing and the fetal measuring, these are really important exercises for kids who have any level of attachment and bonding disorder, which I know is not a lot of the audience that's going to be watching this video. But when you've got a kid who has really hypervigilant and controlling behavior, part of that can be an attachment and bonding disorder. And fetal crossing and fetal measuring is a very important aspect of these children's recoveries in that regard. And so...
But that's just an added piece of what that does. You're not saying that if your kid doesn't have those issues, don't do this. You're saying it has additional benefit in that area, but it's on the list because it benefits everybody who's neurologically challenged.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so that was perfect.
So if you can put them in your lap.
Oh yeah.
You can maintain some really good eye-to-eye contact with them during that.
Okay.
And that just adds to the benefit of it.
Okay, so we might want to speed up a little bit. Homolateral patterns.
Homolateral patterns, these are a mainstay in every single child program as masking is.
Okay.
Homolateral patterns are homolateral being same-sided. So a homolateral pattern looks like this.
Go all the way back. Yeah, there you go. Go a little bit cattywampus sideways. Yeah, there you go.
Okay. So a homolateral pattern looks like this.
Okay.
We've got a 90-degree angle on the arm, and we have a 90-degree angle at the hip and again at the knee. So we're not tucking the foot. We're not tucking the heel of the foot up near the opposite knee. We're keeping it out at a 90-degree angle.
Okay.
And the head always leads the pattern. So what we're going to do is, and I'll do it in slow motion first, these two are going to go, and these two are going to come down. And then these two are going to go, and those two are going to come down. Now notice when I brought this arm forward off my back, I did not allow the knuckles to drag. So when the hand is going to the back, the palm is sweeping the floor.
Okay.
But when it is coming off the back and returning to the position near the head, it is being lifted and the knuckles are not dragging.
Okay.
So if I were to do 10 of these, it would look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
And I kept my feet on the floor the whole time. So one of the things that we don't want is something that looks like this out of the feet.
Oh, where they're kind of trying to use their feet as part of the pattern.
Yeah, what a lot of kids do is they get really lazy, Dana,
Okay.
and they end up doing what I call the windshield wiper thing with their head, where their spine is coming over here and over here. So they're here, and then they're just doing this, which is really just throwing the hips from side to side.
Oh, okay.
What we want is for them to really be lifting their knee and keeping their spines straight.
Okay. Perfect.
So, of course, that is a primer for crawling. That
Okay, which I think, where are we? Okay, so now we're on crawling. So at some point here, we'll establish some written basic guidelines that go with this that talk about what benchmarks to look for to advance to the next one, et cetera, et cetera. But for this, we're going to keep it tight. So crawling, show us crawling.
Okay, so crawling. I'm a very good crawler. I wouldn't expect most kids to be able to come in and crawl as well as I can. But the sophisticated pattern that we're looking for is what I'm about to demonstrate for everyone.
And what's weird is I totally assumed I was going to be like a really good crawler because I went to college on a scholarship in diving. I've always been an athlete. I'm pretty darn smart, and I did it wrong. Remember?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, show us crawling. Show us crawling.
Okay, so here it comes. Let me just get a read on where that gives me a little bit more mat to work with.
Okay.
Okay, so good crawling looks like this.
Okay. And yes, he's creeping. In the world of babies, people think that's creeping, and crawling is when you're up on your knees with your hips in the air. So in the world of neuroregeneration, the word crawling means with your chest on the ground.
Yep. All right, so I'll do it back this way. and hopefully everyone will be able to see
Actually, you know what I want you to do really quick is move the couch out of frame and do it all the way across that blue mat. Because this is an important one. Because once parents get to the point that they're crawling, they're going to have to do this every day, you know? Oh, and now our pillows are back in frame. Sergeant is moving furniture for you guys. Do you get how dedicated he is? Now you have to move the pillows because it looks like someone just, you know.
The pillows.
The pillows. Perfect. Now show us crawling. Start at the very, very end of that mat. Perfect. Chest down. Go slow. Go really slow. Now go the other way and point out what you're doing with your arms. He's like reaching out. And then do you see his feet? He's pushing, he's flexing and pushing with his feet. So do it again. Reaches out with the arms, chest up and down, and he's pushing with his feet. Reaching, pushing, reaching, pushing. This is what kids do before they get up and start doing that knee crawling.
All right, so I couldn't hear anything you were saying, Dana.
I was trying to narrate that you're basically reaching out and pulling with your arms while you're pushing with your flexed feet, toes on the mat.
Exactly. So the hands are coming in underneath the chest, and they're rotating, and then they're coming back out again. Coming underneath the chest, rotating, and back out again.
Okay.
That's providing some of the most foundational manual skills that you can learn.
Okay.
And all the fine motor skills that need.
Sergeant, are you winded right now?
Yeah, I am a little.
Considering you're like an extreme sport, mountain biking, snowboarding freak of nature, that's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so
one thing that I want to stress to everyone is you can correct anything behavioral that you want about your child's crawling, but you are not allowed to correct style. You're not allowed to tell them what to do with their arms, what to do with their legs, how to use their toes, because what happens in those circumstances is they start controlling the movement from their cortex, the outer layer of the brain.
So how do you tell them how to do it? How do you tell them how to do it?
That's what the homolateral patterns are for. The homolateral patterns teach all the prerequisite skills that they need to learn through feeling how they need to move correctly. So we want to input it through the tactile system. Because when you
another example of a graduation that you're going to do the homolateral, and for some of these kids, they're going to be there for a while.
And
right?
So the ideal thing to do is have them do a set. So when I do sets of homolateral patterns, I like to build my kids up to 60 repetitions fairly quickly. So each time the head turns counts as one.
Okay.
All right. So I'll do it very quickly here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Okay.
All right. So what we want to do is we want to get them up to 60 repetitions. And as soon as those 60 reps are over, we want them to do 200 feet of crawling. And we want to repeat that sequence 3 times throughout the day.
Okay, so let me see if I understand this correctly. So while they're doing their homolateral component, you can suggest shifts in the way that they're doing to correct it.
Yes. Yep.
But once they go to crawling, you don't say anything. However they're doing it needs to be corrected in the homolateral stage to keep them out of thinking their way through it.
Right. Because we're trying to appeal to the pons, which sits down here just behind the eyes, kind of crowns the brainstem.
Okay.
And that part of the brain does not understand English. The only part of the brain that can understand English is the cortex. And with most of these kids, the cortex is the least of their problems.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Let's transition now. I'm going to show you the screen. Now we are going to go to the vertical plane, and Sergeant is going to change the camera angle that we previously set up. and I had them shut doors and, throw out the dead bodies. No, I'm teasing.
All right, so
Okay, so now we're back to Sergeant, and we're on the vertical plane balance beam.
so there's a lot of different variations to this. A person could put down like a duct tape line on their floor and use
or a blue tape. Yeah, I would use a blue tape so that you can pull it off without trashing your floor. But go ahead.
Right. Okay. You can use curbs outside in your house or in a parking lot or somewhere else, or even cracks in your driveway would work well. I have a pretty sophisticated balance beam that might be the subject of another Google Hangout at some point. But when you have your child walk a balance beam, it's important that they do it, that their heel touches their toe with every step. It's easy for anyone to run across a balance beam. It takes a great deal more balance to do it like I'm going to demonstrate.
Okay.
So we come over here, I'm on my balance beam.
Okay.
My heel is going to touch my toe. With each step, my heel is going to touch my toe.
Does it matter if you're looking down, or what is that?
They say to be looking up. I have really good balance, so it's relatively easy for me to do this.
Okay.
If they get really good at it doing it that way, then you can have them touch their toe to their heel and begin walking it backwards.
Okay.
If you get really good at that, then what you can do.
So all of these things have built-in ways to graduate.
Is you can have them grab a bean bag, and they have to throw and catch the bean bag with their dominant hand while they walk the balance beam. And if they get really good at that, then you can have them throw and catch. You can see it's harder with your non-dominant hand.
Yeah.
But you can have them do this. Once they can do this, then you can switch it up and you can have them do the balance beam with a blindfold on. You can make your balance beam narrower. You can have them step over a stick. I will use a yardstick, and you put the yardstick. If you have a child walking a balance beam and they're here, and you take a yardstick and you put it in so it's going horizontally in front of their knee, you make them step over the yardstick, and then it goes in front of this knee, and they have to step over it. So there's all different ways of making a balance beam much more complicated.
Okay, so just so people are on the page of understanding what all of these things are designed to do in graduating fashion, is we're trying to make the brain that's challenged and tends to be challenged in a way that one side's more dominant than the other. We're attempting to force the brain to communicate left to right, left to right, left to right. And as you graduate the difficulty of the tasks going left to right, you work on the brain at a deeper level. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep. Yep. And balance beams are great for the vestibular system. They're great for the proprioceptive system. They force focus and concentration. They're just wonderful tools. They help establish a midline. So there's a lot of different reasons, a lot of different therapeutic reasons for using a balance beam.
And bottom line, anybody, I created a Thrive Top 10 list for things to do and consider before and during the Brain Treatment Center's repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation. And this video should be the thing you do every single day while you're doing that treatment. Just saying.
Now, the thing that kids walk into my office, and by and large, the moment they step foot through the door, they will say to me, "Can I hang upside down today? Can I hang upside down? Are you going to let me hang upside down today? Please, please, can I hang upside down?" 90% of the kids who come in here love being hung upside down. So We're
And
gonna right
and you
now,
have videos where this is called suspended inverted rotation, or
right, which I
SI.
affectionately call SIR, and SIR is where I learned how to read as a child.
Wow, it's so funny. I have some video. I'll put it. My daughter was on one of those rip sticks. You know, the ones that you can go around in a circle in a garage because as your weight tilts back and forth, it goes slowly around. She
Yep.
was reading on that thing. Yesterday, she was playing the guitar on that thing. So I
Yeah.
think for some of these more neurologically advanced kids, but where they still have some of these issues, you could take it to the whole next level. Are we ready for your dude?
We are ready. He's on his way in right now.
So this is going to be suspended inverted rotation.
Now,
To set this up costs between $50 and $100. Sergeant has about $50 worth of supplies that he doesn't really make any money on. He just keeps them in-house at activehealing.org in order to be able to ship them to you. And then there's about $50, $50 to $60 worth of things that you get offline. What's the name of that website? Where
it's
they
called southpawenterprises.com.
and we can put a link on exactly what to buy. That goes into your ceiling. It has to go into a joist. And then between those two things, we're at about $110. You're ready to do suspended inverted rotation. Not recommended for dogs, however. Go ahead.
Yeah. Indy somehow knows whenever I'm going to do SIR with a child and gets very excited about it. But we're going to ask her to leave. Can you go? Can you move?
And he goes, sit.
No, you're good. All right, so these are...
I think you're going to need to back up just a little bit when you put it on his feet, the chair.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm going to lift his feet up a little bit, so I think we'll be okay. But this is an SIR strap.
That you get from Sergeant at Active Healing.
Right. It has a D-ring at the end of it, that silver part, and that's rated for 1,500 pounds.
Okay, so I could even do it.
It's got a seatbelt stitch in it. That's called the seatbelt stitch. It's done by a woman here in Gloucester who sews all sorts of stuff for the fishing industry that we have here.
So these are made for you.
End, same seatbelt stitch.
Okay.
And this D-ring passes right through it.
Okay.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up Sergeant's foot here. Can everyone see this?
And Sergeant, the slower you move and the less you move, the clearer the video footage is.
Right, I know. Okay, so I'll try to be slow.
Okay.
All right, so what we're going to do is there's a rough edge where the piece of fabric has been folded over and sewn. We don't want that rough edge against his skin, so we're going to have that facing out.
Okay.
And I'm going to tweak it, and I'm going to hold it right at about the mid-step and at the center point here.
Okay.
It crosses over his ankle, wraps around from behind, which creates an X
on his ankle. Okay.
On his ankle. And then we simply stuff it in from behind.
Okay.
And when we pull tight, it should be pulling from the center of his foot, which this one is exactly.
Perfect.
All right. So now I'm going to do the other one.
Okay. And you like them to wear shoes because
I like sneakers the best. Yep.
Okay, because it grabs and it relieves the pressure points, right?
Right. Otherwise, the SIR straps kind of collapse your arch a little bit. Feels weird.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, you can do it that way. It's just not as comfortable. So again, we're holding that over at the center point from the inside of his foot, obviously. It's crossing to the outside of the ankle. We're making an X over the front. And I'm stuffing this end in from behind. And when I pull tight, it's pulling right from the center again.
So does the pressure point tend to be right where the laces are once he's hung upside down?
You know, you'll have to ask Sergeant. I find this just remarkably comfortable.
Okay.
But I did a lot of it as a kid.
Yeah.
So let's stand up. You're going to go stand up and put your feet right under there. Now, I have a winch.
What's a winch?
I have an AC power-driven winch because I hang all sorts of different kids of different heights from my ceiling. Most parents are not going to go out and buy a $300 winch and install it in their ceiling.
So,
all you need.
And what weight do you think a parent's going to need a winch before they're going to be able to do this? Like a 100-pound kid? Anything under 100?
That depends a lot on the parent.
Okay, keep going. Keep going.
Okay, so, I always tell my kids that they can have fun, but what can't they have, Sergeant? Not too much fun.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, but they can't be eating a lollipop or something. What happened? Where'd you go, Sergeant? Sergeant? You disappeared, Sergeant. Oh. Let's see if I can just add him really fast. So bear here. He doesn't realize he just went bye-bye. So I'm trying to add. Sorry, this has been great so far, but I need to just add Sergeant back. He doesn't realize that he hung up on me. Computer went dead is what I think happened. So, you know what? I'm going to call him too. So this will be a pause in the middle. Thank you for joining us. We're going to try to keep continuing here. If I can get Sergeant to, of course his phone is on vibrate, so it wouldn't interrupt us. We may just have to start on the suspended inverted rotation, which is huge for these kids. I wish Kathy could talk about what a big deal it was for her son. Oh, I don't want to call that one. So he's probably doing the best demonstration of his life. I don't think he realized we were going to go this long and his battery died. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Oh my goodness. All right, so are we still on?
Yeah. Well, what happened was I think your computer cut out right as you were starting to lift him. So just go right back and get ready to lift him.
Okay, so we're going to go right back. Okay,
yep.
You ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Oh, look, the dog wants to play too.
Go.
So there's those two metal loops now that he's got through a carabiner that's, he's doing it with a winch, but this could just be hooked into your I-beam.
Don't spin.
You hook a bicycle with.
Sergeant loves to spin.
Okay.
So I'll let him, you can do some spinning, Sergeant, but just a little bit, okay?
So if you just sit down in the frame, Sergeant, on your left-hand side.
So he loves to spin, but
perfect. What happened? You locked up. There you are. You're back. Say whatever you said again, Sergeant.
Okay, I'm sorry. So Sergeant loves to spin. Sergeant loves being upside down in SIR. And he will spin. He'll like do pirouettes. He'll do what I call orbiting, or he'll just do the pendulum spin, kind of what he's doing right now, although generally he's not balled up like that.
How old was he when he started this?
Oh, he's been doing this for a long time. He used to have his birthday parties here at my office when he was like 5 or 6 years old, and all the kids who came to the birthday parties would want to hang upside down.
And didn't you do this when you were little too? I mean, this was one of the...
And this is where I learned how to read. So with my mother throwing flashcards underneath me,
Oh,
and she would be calling out whichever flashcard she wanted me to reach out and grab.
oh
But
wow.
you can have a lot of fun. So orbits look like this. So they're little circles inside bigger circles. And as I said, I don't have my rotational device, so I'm not going to do too much because it puts stress on my table. Move it
Okay.
in. Um, but yeah, so this is pirouetting right here, which he also loves to do. And then we've
Okay.
just got the pendulum swing, which is back and forth like this. I have a lot of kids who really like to knock out my ceiling tiles. They'll go so
Ah,
and
okay.
generally what I do is I'll keep a child inverted for about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, but you would work your way up to that.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
You would work your way up to that. For these parents who are first starting this,
Yeah, well, some
you
kids,
want them
some
to
kids,
like it.
some kids can jump right in and they're like happy to do 10 minutes.
Okay.
Other kids, you start off with like 20 or 30 seconds and you build them up to 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
All
What
right,
else
so
do we need to know about? Just whatever other vocabulary about. So you did orbiting, you did pirouette, any other
pirouette,
vocabulary?
pirouettes, orbiting, and pendulum swinging, or whatever the child wants to invent as a new way to spin.
And you just put them with their head about a foot off the ground so they don't hit their head.
So will you reach down and touch the floor? So actually, he could go up a little bit higher. I like their fingertips to be on the floor, or a little bit more than their fingertips.
Okay.
But their whole hand doesn't need to be on the floor.
Okay, perfect. Are we ready to move on to the
So
next one?
just a couple of words about this before we move on, Dana, if it's okay.
Sure.
Awesome for tone in the legs, and especially in the legs and somewhat in the arms too. Shifts the position of the diaphragm so that you get deeper breathing. Exercises the smooth muscle tissue in the chest so that not all of the blood and therefore oxygen goes to the brain, but by virtue of the fact that it's exercise, it helps keep blood and oxygen in the brain when the child's standing upright. It is phenomenal vestibular stimulation, and it is an awesome reset for the child who's having an emotional breakdown. I have a number of kids who, the second you get them inverted, it's like you turn a switch and they're right back to being in a good mood. You can literally invert them and bring them straight down, and they're good from that moment on.
We just did this with Crystal, one of our moms who's doing a bunch of stuff and having a lot of success. But we're seeing this mid-afternoon, almost every day time where super stimmy, starting to get a little agitated. I had her take him outside the first time, play in the water. That worked. The second time I said, put him on your hips and just hang him upside down 1 or 2, 3 times, where you kind of flip him down and flip him up. Worked like a charm. So this is just an amazing tool for all those kids that get agitated, stimmy when they're trying to find their way back to homeostasis. This gives them the vestibular stimulus that they're seeking with all that stimming and running and scripting and stuff. This gives them everything they're seeking.
Here we go.
But see, you can accomplish that same thing with a massage table. You can have a massage table that they're laying on. You put their ankles up, right? And then you take the massage table out and it would work the same as that. Now we're doing our... So next I'm going to show you that we're going to go to mini trampoline. This is what we think most people should have in their homes for not only the neuroregeneration piece, but the neurovascularity piece. It's the lymph drainage and stimulation and blood flow that you can find, especially when you can get it for $30 at a Walmart. Sergeant's going to show you his little red ball over here, and pretend your little red ball is your mini tramp and talk about that.
Okay, so this is a Bosu ball, and I wouldn't generally recommend this as a trampoline, but my trampoline cost several $1,000s, and it weighs 300 pounds. Is in another room.
Okay.
So So for a trampoline, you might have one that has something that the child could hold on to, or it could be near a bed or a table that they can put their arms on. But anytime you're doing bouncing up and down, you're working on compressing and decompressing the spine and working with the cerebral spinal fluid, which is just a fantastic thing to do. And if you have one that the child can hold on to, you can have them repeat a mantra 25 times, such as I am loved, or I am getting everything I need, or I am a snappy listener. So you pick something, an I am or an I must phrase, and you have them repeat that mantra 25 times.
I would say stick with the I am and get rid of the I must, because it just doesn't sound good. But go ahead.
So it's awesome to do that.
So what's your recommendation for timing?
I would challenge anyone to be in a really bad mood while they jump up and down.
Oh, very good. So how long every day, right away? Do we work up to this?
I would do that. So what I would there's a behavioral correction that can be made using a mini trampoline. So what you would do in that situation is you'd use the mini trampoline with a mantra that's repeated 25 times, 3 times a day, regardless of anything else that's going on. If the child starts the cycle of an emotional breakdown in behavior, you can interrupt that breakdown by returning them to the trampoline and having them do an additional set of the mantra, whatever you've chosen. I am loved, I am cared for, I am getting whatever I need, I am a good listener, I am well behaved, whatever it is. But and because it really will short circuit the bad behavior.
Okay. And I don't think there's bad behavior. I think there's behavior that's seeking to fill a need that we sometimes don't understand. But, we're on the same page on that.
Right,
okay, so, oh my God, we're almost done. Okay, so now vestibular stimulation.
So vestibular stimulation. So the best vestibular stimulation, in my opinion, is what we did a moment ago with Sargent, where we inverted him. We hung him upside down in SIR. But there are lots of other ways to skin a cat.
Okay.
Wait a minute. Let's do it this way. All right. So.
Very good. Look at you.
We can do forward rolls. Most people would call this a somersault. A somersault is done from standing up.
Okay.
If your child's capable of doing that and remaining safe, then great. But I start most kids up from squatting.
Okay.
Hands go on the floor, tuck the head, and roll.
Okay.
So that's a forward roll. Having them do a series of those is a great way to stimulate the vestibular stimulation.
Okay.
But one that a tremendous amount of kids get a kick out of is called the egg roll.
Okay.
So the egg roll, you have the child sit down, it's crisscross applesauce, and they have to hold onto their toes really tight. Usually it will take a parent to kind of hold onto a shoulder and guide them through this until they finally figure out how it's done. And it's really funny. Most parents, it's hilarious to watch parents do this as well the first time. But what happens is you kind of get yourself loaded up and you rock to your back and over to your shoulder and your back.
And you make sure there's no piece of wood to hit your head on, like behind him.
So that is a phenomenal exercise because it very quickly gets you dizzy. It traces the semicircular canals in the ear.
Okay.
And it's a great vestibular exercise. And again, the kids really enjoy that one. They think it's fun, and they get really goofy and they laugh and they have a good time with that one.
Hey, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Should they keep it even both directions, like 3 times to the right and 3 times to the left, or What
I
about the
would
spinning?
alternate. I tend to do things. I tend to alternate, um, and this could be a point for further discussion. But
Okay.
I will have them do a few minutes or several minutes of that, 5 minutes maybe, as much as 5 minutes of that. And
Okay.
I would generally have them going clockwise. But then when we come around and we do another session, excuse me, we would do the second session counterclockwise.
Okay.
So I'd alternate by session.
And this should stimulate that nystagmus, right? So when they stand up, they should have that eye thing.
So a nystagmus is when the eyes are going like this.
Right.
Most people, I don't know if everyone knows that. But yeah, you should see what's called a post-rotary nystagmus in the eyes once they're done.
So what's going to happen with some of these kids, don't freak out. You are not going to see it. And then over time, doing these neuroregeneration techniques, it's going to appear out of nowhere. And that is neurological order and advancement. It's what you want.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So
Okay.
another way to do that, so you can have the child simply lay down, and you can do what's called a log roll, which is with the arms at the side, and they're just rolling over like this. You can do it as a pencil roll. Same sort of thing, except for now the hands are above the head, and they're rolling with the hands above the head.
Okay.
But one of my favorites is the helicopter spinning.
Okay.
So for helicopter spinning, they put their arms out at their side, and they spin, and they have to do this in a controlled way for 15 seconds.
Wow.
Once they've spun quickly but controlled for 15 seconds, the next thing that they're going to do is balance for 15 seconds. Their arms don't have to be out at their sides, but we want them to balance for 15 seconds.
You mean like balance on one foot, balance on the balance beam? What do you want?
No, just balance on both feet. Just stand in place and balance where they stop.
And they're not going to be able to do it at first. They're just not. It's going to be really, really, it's going to demonstrate for you the underlying neurological disorganization that we know is there, but the neurologists don't look at.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 15 seconds of spinning, 15 seconds of standing, 15 seconds spinning, then 15 standing, spinning, standing, spinning, standing. And start off with maybe 2 minutes, then work your way up to 3. Eventually, we'll work your kids all the way up to doing 5 minutes of helicopter spinning.
Wow, okay.
Okay? And if you want to make it much more complex for them, like if you think they're doing a great job, you've made it up to 5 minutes, and you want to make a modification that will increase the complexity of it.
Yeah.
Get some full spectrum like Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, like a full spectrum music.
Okay.
And whenever you want them to stop, you turn on that full spectrum music really loud.
Wow.
And that really stimulates the inner ear, which is already stimulated from all the spinning, and it makes it 3 times as hard to stand up.
Oh my God, that's so cool. That's so cool. Okay,
and eventually you could even graduate to doing it all with music. So there are ways to modify this stuff and make it more complex.
So basically, you're talking about a kid, you're going to say, okay, spin, and when you hear the music, stop. So they're going to spin, you're going to, it's almost like a, you know, Simon Says or what, you know. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so now to the last one, creeping.
Creeping is another one that you don't give instruction for. You just have the child do it. Creeping works specifically on the midbrain. The midbrain does not understand English, and it is going to be learned through all the other exercises that your child is doing. It will become more organized on its own.
Okay.
So creeping is up on hands and knees. So I'll start with some creeping. I don't generally do bear walks with kids, but it can be if you have an older and more sophisticated child, bear walks can be really good for developing shoulder strength and just as a modification, making creeping more complex. So again, start with creeping and I'll finish with bear walks.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out how this ended up on the vertical plane.
Okay, so creeping is down here. Ideally, sophisticated creeping looks like this.
Do that one more time. Let's see how.
I'll do it one more back and forth.
So
but what we can see is that my opposite arm and leg are going forward together. My head is up, and I'm looking straight across at where I'm going. So these two move forward, and they both land at the same time. These two move forward and both land at the same time. My feet are dragging, but my knees are lifting. And my fingers are pointed straight ahead. Maybe I should do it towards the camera. Ready? So here we go.
So the leg and arm are in opposition.
The leg and arm are right, yeah. It's
know what I did? Remember, I did it the same side.
You did it homolaterally, if I recall, Dana.
Oh my God. Too funny. Too funny.
All right, so that's that. And then the bear walk. There's a lot of people in the strength and conditioning world, strength and conditioning coaches for, professional football and basketball teams and whatnot. And a lot of these guys pride themselves on how far they can bear walk. So the goal for a lot of these big, tough strength and conditioning coaches is to do a 1 mile straight bear walk. I know I could do it. I just haven't done it yet. But I'm actually, one of these days, I'm going to set up my GoPro and I'm going to set myself up and I'm going to do a mile straight of bear walk. So a bear walk looks like this.
Okay.
You're off the knees and your heels. And it's this way.
So exact same motion, just knees up.
It's the same motion, right? But it's obviously a much heavier shoulder movement.
Right. Okay, 2 quick questions, and it's just 3 quick questions. Ready?
Go.
Number 1, how did those end up on the vertical plane instead of the horizontal plane?
Because you're defying gravity.
Okay.
You're actually having, with the creeping, you have to have developed enough proprioceptive and load-bearing strength and whatnot to get up off of the horizontal plane and into the vertical plane.
Okay, perfect. Second question. I know when we were trying to design some curriculums for some schools remember when I was doing that Thrive to Think.com for schools or whatever, and brachiating or the monkey bars was like the most important thing these neurotypical, pretty neurologically organized kids could do. How did that not end up on the list? It's just too advanced?
It's one is I don't have a brachiating ladder to demonstrate it on.
No, but it's not on the list, and it's not something you can just readily have.
Right, yeah.
Okay, but just so people know, oh my God, if you have monkey bars and you have a kid who can brachiate and do
so
it's amazing.
If you're considering working on brachiating with your child, which I would very much encourage.
Or just monkey bars.
Right, monkey bars. What I would do is I would Google orangutans.
Okay.
And I would watch a YouTube video or 3 or 4 of an orangutan swinging from branch to branch on a tree. Because what happens when you're brachiating, when you're using monkey bars in a sophisticated way, it doesn't generally look like what you see if you see a military training video, which is like, by and large, it's these big guys, and they're boom, 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 and it's all upper body, and their lower body is just hanging straight, like on line. If you watch an orangutan do it, they get out here like this, and their whole lower body will be swinging back, and then they swing forward, and they swing back, and they swing forward. It takes about half as much upper body strength.
Wait, let me show you something really quick. I'm going to do something here. Hang on. It's a picture. Remember the neurovascularity one? We had Misfit LA come and talk about, remember?
Missy Beaver,
Don't you go to me. Don't you dare go to me. Okay. When I press these buttons. Okay, so we're going to go to this right here, and watch her. Let me back it up. Watch
Does
her.
she brachiate in a video?
Yeah, see? Look at that. Do you see that?
Yeah, right. That's exactly right. And she's using rings, which really promotes that even better.
But do you see how she's doing that whole like thing that you're talking about and all this?
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
thing
See,
that
now
she
I would say that
converted.
her legs could go back even further.
Okay.
I wish I had a picture of me brachiating, but I almost get, when I brachiate, I get almost vertical. So this would be my head, and these would be my legs.
Oh my God! I just had to like, what was that? Hang on. Let's go to this. I just did. Okay, there we go. Okay, say that again, Sarge.
So when I brachiate,
Yeah.
I get at probably like more than a 45-degree angle.
Okay.
So my feet would be back here, and my head would be here.
Okay.
So when a parent is teaching their child how to do monkey bars, I have them stand beside the child, put one arm around their waist, and draw their weight back, and then tap the rear hand as a cue for them to let go. And then you let them swing forward, and then you wrap the opposite arm around their waist, and you tap the opposite arm. You get into
Okay, we have to do a video on that too. That just got too.
You get into a little bit.
Okay, so Sergeant, let's finish up by saying thank you so much. You've been such a blessing to the Thrive movement, bringing solutions to these parents. Here is your phone number at the bottom. You can call him. ActiveHealing.org is where you get a hold of him. But Sergeant, really quickly, one thing that's happened because of your involvement with Thrive a little bit is people are like, well, you know, other people do this too. Sergeant's not the only one you can go to. So what is what you do described as? So let's say they're in Montana, or like what can they look for on the internet for other practitioners who do some of what you do?
Well, so a long time ago, when Art Sandler was a physical therapist, he put my program together for me when I was a child.
Okay.
He called it neurodevelopmental or neurophysiological work.
Okay.
Neurophysiological is probably the most appropriate term for it, but right now it is most commonly referred to as neurological reorganization. And there's only a few of us who do it in a principled context like I do it.
Okay.
Where we go back and we work on all these really primitive patterns, and we don't specifically teach crawling in an intellectual context.
Okay. So is it completely different than like brain gym and stuff like that? Totally.
It is completely different from brain gym, yep. And it's not sensory integration, and it's not physical therapy, and it's not occupational therapy.
Okay, so bottom line is there's a lot of people doing a lot of stuff that absolutely benefits our kids, no question about that. But this particular video is going to be your starting place. Sergeant has given this to you to use with your child. If you see great success with this, then it might be time to make an appointment with Sarge. He can do it via Skype. And any final words, Sarge? We love you. We love you.
No, I would say the final words or phrase that I would like to remind parents of is that when you're looking at your child, it's really quite easy to look at the physical deficits they have as a separate movement disorder. Right. What I would tell you is the movement disorder is central to the problems that your child is facing. And
foundational that it's underneath that.
Yep. The movement disorder is not a separate disorder. It's central to the challenges that your child is facing. And if we can improve their function in these very specific developmental areas, it will have a structural impact, a positive structural impact on their neurology. You will improve their brain function.
When you lower the chaos and you lower the stress, their neurological organization improves, and suddenly it feels like they're smarter and calmer and all these other things. So, Sergeant, you're the best. Thank you so much. We have lots to talk about besides this, but we love you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Dan, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for everything you're doing for all of the parents out there.
Well, you are just so welcome. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.